Okay, so we talk about loops here. Um, I would suggest if you've not had any kind of programming before, be careful, always be very careful running loops, especially in a Windows environment. Um, anyway, let's talk about the theory of loops here, and we'll talk about cautions in a second. Loops allow you to repeat a set of steps over and over again until you tell the computer to stop, okay? The simplest loop exists in most languages, the do loop. In VBA, there's a do loop in VBA, just like there's a do loop in many other languages that you will learn for computer programming. The VBA do loop is pretty simple. You start with the command do. You'll have to manually type this in your macro. And then after that are going to be the set of steps that you want to repeat over and over again. And then when you're done, right, when you say these are all the steps that need to be repeated, you have to manually type in the word loop. And so what will happen is that when the computer runs the macro, it comes down through here, it finds the word do, and it says, all right, let's start repeating. And so it'll do this step, and it'll do this step, and the next step until it finds the word loop, and it'll go back up to do, and then it will repeat, and 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 it will repeat. Guys, if you, I always tell people the simplest virus to write in a Windows environment is a loop that has no way to stop. If you do not tell the macro how and when to stop, it will run and it will run until your computer stops working or you unplug it, right? So just be very careful. That's what I'm telling you. If you don't have computer programming experience, I would suggest against writing loops unless you just really want to. You do not need to do loops you do not need to do any kind of loops for today's assignment. But if you wanted to experiment with them, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to tell a loop when to stop. One of the simplest ways in VBA is to just put in the exit do command somewhere. And a real nice thing to do is just put it in an if statement. If some condition is met, then exit do. And what happens is when this engages, when the macro or when VBA finds this command, what you're telling it is go to the word loop and then start after that. Okay, so very simple macro. We could write this one real quick. In fact, let's do that. Let's write this macro real quick. We can write this one from scratch manually. Oh, we got to go outside the end sub here. Let's manually write this macro. Sub to start the macro. We'll call this one bottom 3. Open close quotation. Enter. That creates a new macro. We're going to create a do loop, and it's going to be active cell dot offset 1 row 0 columns. Move down 1 cell dot select. That's the new selection. The new active cell selection is going to be move down 1. Okay. All right, what do we do next? Well, if I come down here and type the word loop, I have just created a virus, if I'm being honest with you. That is what's called an infinite loop. That is a loop that's going to continue to run. There's no way for it to stop. I am not going to run this code, okay? If I don't tell it when to stop, right, then it's going to most likely harm the computer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say if selection equals open close quotations, that's empty. If you find an empty cell, then exit do. So it recognizes selection, it recognizes the if-then statement, it found the exit do command. This should be fine. We're going to talk about it here in a little bit. Be very careful running a loop the first time. I would suggest saving first. Let's just make a button here. We'll call this bottom 3. And we'll assign bottom 3 to it. Okay. So if I put this in here and I run bottom 3, beautiful. Moves down until it finds an empty cell, and then it stops. And I can put that here and run that. And I can put it here and run that. because it doesn't matter where it's at, it's just going to move down. If I put it in a blank cell and I move it, it'll just move down, find a blank, and if that cell is blank, it stops. Okay, that's bottom 3. That's a very simple loop that you can write. Okay, be very careful with that. You do have to tell it somehow when to stop. Another way you can do that, if you've had programming before, you're more than welcome to implement a do while or do until loop. That's where you give it some kind of an exit, specify how long this should run. And the easiest way to do that is outside of the loop, set a value for a variable and create the variable x and set it equal to 0. And then tell it do until that x value is 10. Right, so this loop will run 10 or 11 times this way. And then somewhere within the loop, before you get to the loop command, you want to increment, you want to increase the value of x. So every time it runs, it adds 1 to x. And so when it hits this limit, then it will stop. Okay, but again, a loop will run forever and can damage your computer without an exit condition. So just keep that in mind. I've been writing macros a long time, and I will just tell you, every once in a while, I will still trap myself in an infinite loop. I always like to, tell people about if you're playing, let's say you're playing some kind of a role-playing game where you're working on this character and you spend hours, if not days, working on this character, building up skill. What do you do if you're going to go fight a big boss that might possibly kill you, or you're going to murder something or steal something? You're going to do something that's going to change the course of the rest of the game. What do? You save. You create yourself a point that you can go back to if you do not like the results of doing this. Running a loop, in my opinion, is the same thing. If you don't want to work on these awesome, cool macros and this really nice workbook and get all this work done and have hours sunk into it, and you run a loop that does not have an exit condition, or you trap yourself and where you can't trigger the exit condition somehow, there's no guarantee you're going to get back all of your work. You probably get most of it back. But if you'll save, create yourself a save point, then even if the entire computer crashes, you can come back to that save point and still try to figure out how to get yourself out of that loop. So just be aware of that. I'm trying to save you some time and some heartache later that way. Okay. All right, guys, that is what I have today. Look at the assignment 7. Email me if you have questions. Leave comments down below if you like, if you don't mind the world seeing them. And we'll go from there. All right, guys. Let me know how I can help you.